Hey, what's happening out there? This is Halftime Prep Talk. At dailyindependent.com. Welcome to our HTPT Football Prelude to the Playoffs edition. The special show, we're on ties for the occasion, as you noticed. As always, HTPT is always sponsored by Fannin Automotive Family. Football has 4 quarters, 4 down, so HTPT has 4 guys in ties today who are eager to deliver their thoughts on the upcoming weeks. I'm Aaron Snyder, sports editor of The Independent, joined by Mackenzie Bates of the Moorhead News, Matthew Sparks, sports writer here at The Independent, and Zach Clemmy, also sports writer here at the newspaper. I'm also pleased to announce that our special guests this week are Raceland volleyball coach Jason Clark and team member Morgan Large. They'll be joining us here just in a little bit. The Lady Rams are fresh off their second consecutive 16th region volleyball title, and they're heading to the state tournament on Friday in Louisville. They'll be playing Scott High at 3:30. First, we'll take a look back at the high school football regular season before we dive into the playoffs, and also want to bring your attention to the scrolling ticker at the bottom of your screen. That's a Zanzi's ticker for pizza to go. Zanzi's is the way to go. Week 11, to wrap up the season, Ironton beat Raceland 25-12 behind a 166-yard rushing effort by D'Angelo Palladino. A strong defensive showing as well in the second half. Johnson Central slammed Belfry guys 35-0. Bryce Workman with 3 touchdowns. As Matt would say, a very workman-like effort from the Johnson Central quarterback. Were you guys at all surprised that they won by that kind of margin?
At this time of year, especially when we get into October and November, Belfry football is starting to click on all cylinders. They've won multiple state championships at the 2A and the 3A level, so I'm not surprised at the way they beat them, but that's because they're a well-oiled machine at this time of year.
Well, we also had Paintsville beating West Carter, which you were at, I think, in Olive Hill. Cash Daniel registers 20 tackles for the Tigers in the game. Pikeville had a little trouble with Russell, 35-7. Green County hammered East Carter 50-6. And Fairview took down Gamble Montessori. And finally, guys, a 3-way tiebreaker in Class 4A District 8. Kind of fogged up, cleared up. It took a while for the defroster to kick in, didn't it? But we finally got who was going to the playoffs. Tulsa beat Boyd County 7-6. Round County furiously rallied to beat Montgomery County 60-54. That's right, it's not basketball season yet. 60-54. So the KHSA ended up going to the head-to-head matchup between Boyd and Rowan to determine who got the 4th spot, which Boyd got, and they're going to Highlands this Friday. Congratulations, right? I mean, come on. You know, that's not really a gift, but congratulations to Boyd for going to the playoffs. You know, Rowan County, after the win there, Mackenzie, I thought we had it all figured out that Rowan County was going to Highlands, but it's going to be Boyd. Yep. This 3-way tie stuff. Yeah, it gets a little convoluted.
It was a little interesting too, and I think it'll be even more convoluted next year once they add East Carter into that district too. So there'll be 6 teams instead of 5. But when we talk about the Rowan County Montgomery County game, I ran into Ray Graham at the state boys soccer tournament, and he gave me some of the numbers, and my jaw dropped when I heard that they had 717 yards on the ground. Every single yard they had was on the ground.
That's a season for some.
Wow. It's the second all-time in the state of Kentucky. Connor had 745 yards against Franklin County in a playoff game 3 years ago. But it was still mind-blowing to see that the guys that they have in their running back core with Jeffrey Masters, Blake Carver, Dylan Foltz, of course Devin Helby can run the ball too. For them to put up 717 yards against a team that plays in 6A and has more kids out for their football team too. It's pretty alarming. And
despite the record.
Yeah, despite the record. You know, Rowan County obviously ends the season at 2-8 too, but they played so well, and it's a great way to start their off-season program heading into next year.
Absolutely. You know, with Ray Graham being the first-year coach there, definitely a boost going into the next season.
They average 14 yards a play.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Okay, so we'll have like a 4-quarter setup here. First quarter topic. Let's talk about one thing that you can pick out that happened this season. At the beginning of the year, you would have said, no way. Zach, we'll start with you.
I think you start out with West Carter. They've had a very solid season this year. They managed to play pretty good defense against Paintsville, and it just didn't quite work out that way. But a big question mark for West Carter coming into this season was defense, and they managed to make some stops when they had to. Big stop against Lewis County when Lewis County is driving that last playoff spot on the line. So Wes Carter's defense made a big stop when it had to, and that was something that was a serious question mark for them early in the year.
They've had 2 or 3 games this year where they've lost in overtime and then lost by just a single-digit points too. So we could be talking about a completely different thing than maybe being a 2 seed or maybe or a 3 seed heading into the playoffs too. But nonetheless, the building blocks are stepping up for Wes Carter too. After that that winless season 2 years ago, then coming back and getting a few wins last year and now getting into the playoffs, you can see the progression of that team and where they're heading in possibly into the playoffs this week and then next year as well.
Still a young team, and they're in that district. Mason County leaves that district next year, so it gets that much easier for them.
Matt, what about your biggest surprise?
Well, I think Fairview having a winning record this season. I thought maybe they were a year away from that. Had a brand new coach. Had a terrible off season. Of course, we all know about that.
Sure.
Probably just shows what a great job Fred Ray has done this season, and the pride that the guys that came back, the Westwood boys, the pride they have in that program. And I think after week 2, when they gave Lawrence County all they can handle, I thought maybe they might have a great season. So I think Fairview having a winning record, it kind of shocked me.
Mackenzie.
I think I'm going to take a little bit different approach to this too. When we all got the news that TJ Maynard was leaving Raceland to go to Russell, we had to try to figure out who was going to be the next coach at Raceland. Mike Sammons ended up getting the job, and it was like, in first year there's always that transition year where he might be up a step or maybe down a step, but he has done a fantastic job. Won another district championship, #1 seed going into the playoffs this week too, and it's been a lot of fun to watch their development and not skip a beat from what TJ built to what Mike is now doing over at Raceland too. So I'm, as a Raceland alum, you've obviously got to be happy for the Ram football program.
Yeah, Raceland, heading into the playoffs 8-2. I probably wouldn't have necessarily envisioned that, like you said with the coaching change and everything. But assistants make a big deal too. The guys surrounding Sammons, the guys surrounding Fred Ray, I think they both have good assistant staffs, and that's really helped those guys out. I'm going to go with Russell going into Putnam Stadium and pulling off the shocker against Ashland. Ashland, they were 5-4 this season. Might have thought their record would be a little better, but probably wouldn't have been, much better. I probably would have picked about 6 or 7 wins for Ashland going into the season. One of those was taken away by Russell going in there and just Nick Conley having a 200-yard rushing game. It seemed like they executed the game plan perfectly going into Putnam. That's not an easy thing to do, and they pulled it off 29-27. We'll be right back with the second quarter topic in just a moment. All right, moving on to our Game Balls edition. It's a little special, something different for the HTPT Prelude to the Playoffs edition. This is a second quarter topic. Game Balls need a ball. There it is. We can give it to a player, coach, offensive line, defensive line, your choice. I'm going to go Blake Smith of Fairview. Almost 1,000 yards on the season. I don't think that's ever been done for a Fairview receiver. He's at 879 right now heading into the playoffs. They'll probably get a couple more games for him to get that. And Blake Smith, is one of those seniors that has been through the Fairview program, been in Fairview schools his whole life, been through a lot through the off season with the KHSAA penalties and everything, and they really overcame that. As Matt said earlier, a great season, exceeded expectations really when you think about all they went through. And Blake is a key reason why. So I'm going to give my game ball to Blake Smith on the regular season.
All right. Well, you look at Fleming County. It's one of the biggest surprises I think in northeastern Kentucky this year. Very solid record. They struggled a lot last year. 20-plus seniors this season, and those guys have managed to do what they needed to get a home playoff game, first one in several years. And they got Bourbon County coming in Friday, so it's going to be an adventure for them. But that in my mind is one of the more intriguing first-round games we have around here because Bourbon has not played especially well down the stretch. So look at Bill Spencer and the coaching staff of what Fleming has done to get them competitive again in what has been a very top-heavy district, a big win over Mason County to close district play. And Fleming County's on the rise, it seems.
I'm going to go with another running back in our area too. It's Rowan County's Jeffrey Masters. He went over the 1,000-yard mark for on Friday against Montgomery County. He had 231 yards on 21 carries.
Wow.
To go over the 1,000-yard mark for the year too. And with a first-year coach in Ray Graham and bringing the wing tee offense in there as well, you really didn't know what to expect. And going back to that number of 717 yards, with the group that they have, and they were able to get that much in there. Think about what they're going to be able to do in the offseason when they work on it and prepare for it and get even better as the offseason goes in for next year too. So Jeffrey Masters is only a junior. He comes back for his senior season next year. He should have another big year, and will be able to help build that cornerstone for a football program that Coach Graham said he wanted to be in the top 4 in 4A as he goes through his second tenure at Round County Senior High School.
Okay.
I think my game ball is going to Greenup County coach Chris Mullins, mainly for how that program has grown since he started there. 2 winless seasons, as we talked about on this show before. 2 wins last year, now 4 this year, going to the playoffs. We kind of looked it up, Zach, before the show. They had 6 games with a touchdown margin. And they're 3-3 this year. Last year they were 1-5, so they've grown there. So I think Chris Mullins deserves my game ball.
All right, Chris Mullins. Bill Spencer, Blake Smith, and Jeffrey Masters get the game balls. And we're going to head to the halftime portion of the show. And for your halftime entertainment, emphasis on entertainment, Jason Clark coming in here, Raceland's volleyball coach, and Raceland sophomore Morgan Large as they set to prepare for the state tournament. Bringing in Jason Clark, the Raceland volleyball Rams, the Lady Rams. Been the coach for how many years now?
9.
9 seasons. Heading to Louisville on Friday. You guys will represent the 16th region in the state tournament. I was wondering, are you going to stop by and say hey to Rick Pitino?
I'd love to. Coach Pitino's awesome. I've always liked him. I've been a big fan of him.
You got Scott coming up, the winner of the 10th region. Tell me what you know about them a little bit and how you guys might stack up.
They've got very strong outsides. They're a quick team. They're fast defensively. We're going to have to get up and swing and put the ball down to the floor. We don't want long rallies. We want to finish points off quickly. 1 pass, 1 set, and a swing, and get that point over with. That's when we're most successful.
We've had a combined 69 wins in the last 2 seasons. Both region champions. First volleyball region championship at Raceland last year. Raceland's kind of known for its football fanaticism, but how has volleyball kind of brought some extra excitement to the fall season?
There's no doubt. I mean, if you were at the championship game, saw the football team, the basketball team there. People in the community have done a great job supporting us. We've got a lot of support from the school district. It's been really fun to have those kind of dual pep rallies and things like that, and people, realizing that, we're pretty significant too.
I know you got some orange Tic Tacs in your pocket. Let's see those.
I always have orange Tic Tacs on me.
When did the tradition begin, the Tic Tac tradition? It is, orange Tic Tacs.
Orange Tic Tacs, there we go.
There.
Yeah, official sponsor, Raceland.
Should be.
It began with about 2008 with Sandy Loperfido. She's a board member. Her daughter played for us, and she always kept candy at the scores table. And I'd always go by and get a piece of candy here and there. And one day she was out of candy. She had those Tic Tacs. I just grabbed a box of them. It was a big important game. I think we were playing Greenup. It was a big important game, and I'm shaking those Tic Tacs and popping them right and left. And so she started bringing them to every game, and that's kind of how the tradition started. And at first they were white, and then it moved to orange, and so the white started getting real hot after a while. So I had to move to something a little milder.
Yeah.
So that's how the orange Tic Tacs got their tradition.
Nice. Well, orange makes sense, being Raceland. And I know you're always pretty animated on the sidelines, so you hear those Tic Tacs shaking the whole game pretty much.
Oh, yeah.
You know what your record is with the Tic Tacs and without them? You keep trying that?
I don't know. I'm going to say the
that's
Tic
a good
Tacs,
team since you brought the Tic Tacs.
Yeah, I'm going to say the Tic Tacs have won close to 200 games. Well over 150.
Such a weapon that you have with Kimbria Williams, 2-time All-Area Player of the Year, possibly a 3-time. We'll see how that goes and how that turns out. But what does she bring to your team just every game?
I mean, she plays extremely hard, and she loves the game of volleyball. And she's a smart player. And what she brings a game-changing element is in she can go up and get a block at any point in time defensively, or she can go up and swing at a ball and put it down at any time. And what people don't understand about her is how well she passes and how well she serves as well. She's a great passer, but the fact that she can just score a point whenever we need one. And she did that in the district tournament against Greenham, being down 3, and she scores 6 in a row, with swings and serves and everything else. So yeah, she's a phenomenal player.
I know you got a very complete team, and that helps you guys tremendously at every position. There's no really weak spot, so to speak. And but you're looking at your hitters, starting with Kimbria. How has her presence kind of helped up and coming sophomore Emily Bryant?
Oh, they go against each other every day in practice, and it makes each of them better. Emily's a different type of jumper. She kind of goes up and hangs, is where Kimbria explodes. But Kimbria's really good with all of our hitters as far as helping them to turn their shoulders, turn their hands. She sees some things, out there, and has them, really hitting holes and swinging at things that they maybe not want to swing at. She's been very valuable to all of them. Sadie Barker and Ryan Bays as well. Those other middles to teach them how to do things at the net.
Setters too. I mean, it starts with Madison Wilburn and Megan Farley. They seem to have 25 to 30 assists tonight. It seems like both of them. Having that kind of stability, that has to mean a lot for your team.
Oh yeah, those girls have done a great job. They've been part of the program since they were in junior high, and most of all the girls have been part of the program since they were in junior high. And they wanted to set back then, and we've kind of tried to space our setters out to where we know what we have coming up, and those girls do a great job. But we also have 2 sophomores who I really believe are still in the top 5 setters in the area, with Morgan Large and Hannah Floyd. And I feel like those 2 seniors have helped train them as well to not miss a beat.
I know Lee Grubbs, your libero, and her older sister Bree played for you as well. So you have more than 200 career coaching wins, and the whole time Grubbs been by your side.
Oh, there's no doubt. And they got another little sister coming up too.
Okay.
So, yeah, there'll be Grubbs around forever in volleyball. Because I think by the time Lee graduates, the other one will be starting middle school. So, the Grubb family. Bree was a phenomenal player for us. Lee's a phenomenal player for us. And Bettina's done everything from run the concession stand to organize parent meetings to everything. So they're almost like the first family of volleyball when it comes to Raceland. They've just been around so long, and they're different. The 2 girls are different, but it's always interesting to watch them interact. And 2 years ago they started on the same team. That was fun to see them play side by side. And it's been a journey. And like I said, I love having her. Bree was riding her bike around the neighborhood when I got her. We didn't have enough to have 12. She was riding her bike down the street. I said, "Hey, throw your bike down." I said, "Get in. We're going to volleyball practice." She goes, "Let me go tell my mom." So that's how she got a part of the team and a part of the program, and then it just kind of carried over.
What's it like, juggling volleyball and basketball now that you've taken over the girls' basketball program? Obviously, that season's on the horizon here. So, what's it been like? The seasons run into each other.
I go straight from volleyball practice into basketball practice about daily, with the exception of if we have a game or something. Then I have good assistants, Ron Keaton and Kim Sexton. They'll take practice that day. But we've got about 4 or 5 girls that play volleyball too. So. They're going back and forth, and that's been tough. 4-hour practices at night after school are tough. 2 volleyball and then two basketball practices. So, but it's part of it, and that's what they hired me for. So that's what we're going to do.
Rams football team 8-2, heading into the playoffs. Pretty easy game this Friday against Phelps, but how far are they going to go?
They're going to the carpet. No
He's
doubt.
calling it. You heard it here. Jason Clark's
State
calling
championship game.
State championship game against Mayfield?
Probably. Probably Mayfield. That'll be tough, but I believe our boys will be up for the challenge.
So they're going to knock out Pikeville,
Yes, and Williamsburg at home.
Fairview, all three
We're
of
going
them.
to knock them out at home. There's no doubt.
All right. You called it.
No
That's
doubt.
all we got.
No doubt. Big Mac say so.
All right, Jason, thanks for joining us. We're going to bring in one of the setters you were talking about, Morgan Large. Morgan Large joins us on the HTPT set, sophomore setter for Raceland. First of all, Morgan, what was your role like last year compared to this year on the team?
I have the same role basically as a defensive specialist, but last year I was just passing, and then this year I got to serve too for Abby Whaley, which is an outside. So I think that was an extra thing that I got to do.
How did this region title this year compare to last year's? Did it feel better? Was it a little sweeter? How did they compare?
I think this year we had a better goal of winning it, and last year we thought that we were going to get it, but I think we were more pumped and excited to get it last year.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably a little bit more emotional last year, just because of the newness of it all. This year, you guys expected to, and the whole season, you guys are pretty dominant, really dominant in the 16th region. Was it almost too easy for you guys sometimes?
No, I think there's a couple teams that could beat us if they got in our heads, or if we were down a little bit and we started messing up a little bit. But I think if we come together as a team and work together, we could beat.
You guys only lost a handful of sets inside the region all season, so you got a new experience last year, like I mentioned, all the newness and everything. This year, you kind of know what you're getting into at the state tournament. That kind of benefited Russell's girls soccer team last week. They had a better showing this year. How do you think that will help you guys, having already been there?
I think that we will.
At least you'll have familiar surroundings and everything this year.
And playing against Logan County last year, I think we were just a little nervous because most of our girls maybe haven't been there a lot or whatever. And I think that we will be more prepared to see what happens.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. And you guys play Friday at 3:30 against Scott High. What's it like playing for Coach Clark?
I think it's fun. He always makes us laugh, or if we're in practice, he'll throw a little joke around or something. But he does get on to us for a lot of things too. I think he expects a lot out of everybody.
Sure. All right, moving on to the triple option. 3 rapid fire questions for you. First, favorite music artist?
Probably Beyonce.
All right. Your favorite TV show?
Gossip Girl.
And what's your favorite thing to do on a volleyball court? Would you rather be serving, passing,
setting,
diving around on the floor?
Yeah,
Setting.
probably setting.
Okay. All right, Morgan, thanks for joining us on HTPT. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
All right, we're kicking off the third quarter portion of HTPT's prelude to the playoffs. I can't even say it anymore, Zach. And it's been too entertaining, too much fun with Jason Clark and Morgan Large. They did a great job. Once again, I want to thank them for coming in. The third quarter, we want to talk about football playoffs. A lot of first-round matchups that are probably going to be a little lopsided coming up. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, you can check out the schedule of the first-round matchups. I want to talk about, and you can include a first-round matchup if you want, but possible playoff matchups that might intrigue you the most. What stands out? What could happen that could be very interesting here in the postseason?
Well, I think this is kind of a cop-out, but Covcath and Johnson Central, in my mind, is really intriguing because it's been a while. We thought maybe last year that Central had a good chance to win that game, and it didn't work out for them. But Covcath, again, is making that long trip, assuming both teams advance in their first-round game. Long trip again down to Paintsville, and it's a different world down there from what they're used to. Central's very young but skilled at running the football, and Covcath has a couple of not very good losses on their resume, so this may be the best. This is the last year that they will have to worry about Covington Catholic and Highlands in the playoffs, and so it's maybe their best chance in the last several years. We looked it up before the show. 6 years in a row, Highlands and Covcath have eliminated Johnson Central from the playoffs, and this is the last year, and they'd like to certainly end that on a good note.
Yeah, before the realignment, they'd like to have their say, wouldn't they? I was drinking the black and gold Kool-Aid, I have to admit, last year, and You know, I was just trying to bring attention to myself, I guess. I was making outlandish predictions and saying that Johnson Central was going to beat Covcath and Highlands and all this. And now, I do feel like that's more of a reality. I think Mackenzie will chime in on this year. But I think the Johnson Central Covcath game could be intriguing, no doubt about it. Last year, I think Johnson Central maybe thought a little too much of themselves as well. And, you know, Covcath reminded them, we are Covcath. We're going to come in here and beat you 42-14. Is that going to weigh on Johnson Central's minds? We'll see. But yeah, definitely some intrigue there in 4A. But I know, Matt, you want to bring up a little bit about Class A, some possible playoff matchups there.
Well, I'm probably going to shock everybody here on the panel here, but I think the Raceland-Pikeville game is going to be closer than what everybody thinks.
So you're saying that Raceland will get past Fairview?
Yes, I think I'm pretty positive with that. But
48-6 regular season, but you know, Fairview does have another weapon now.
Yeah,
Isaiah King
made his reappearance on the team in the season finale against Gail Mysore. He played well. That maybe a lesser opponent there. We'll see how he does here in the playoffs. That could be intriguing, but I think Raceland-Pikeville will be a close game. I think Pikeville Speed will win out on that turf. I think they will win out, but Raceland's defense has gotten better all season long, and they're running the football now even better than they did at the beginning of the season. And if they can run the football effectively, keep that Pikeville offense on the sideline, I think they got a shot.
All right, so Raceland-Pikeville, that would be Week 3 region final.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I'm looking forward to most if it happens, obviously Russell has to get past Western Hills in the first round, but I like the idea of Mason County coming back to Russell here in the next, possibly in the next 2 weeks. I think Dave Buchanan knows his team laid an egg against a very good Russell team. Don't get me wrong, they are very, very good, but I like Mason County's offense and the way they run. You know, they have a lot of different formations, a lot of weapons, both in the backfield and out of wide receiver too. I really think that game will be a lot closer than the original regular season matchup too. But ultimately, probably Russell will come out with that with a victory, get into the regional final.
Zach, your time at Maysville, I know you grew to know a lot about Mason County's program and what they have to offer on the football field. Do you see them kind of rebounding at least and making it a little closer if they meet again?
I do. A couple of things about that first Mason-Russell game. Mason was very banged up, and they still are a little bit beyond what they have been in the last few years.
Especially on defense, right?
Yes. One thing they did last week against Scott in their regular season finale, they brought Brayley Boone back to start at quarterback, which he'd started the season. Jake O'Mara was injured, and they had a better rhythm, really, with Boone than they did at times with O'Mara this year. So it'll be interesting to see how, assuming they get through Estill, which will be a pretty good first-round game, but if that happens, to see what Coach Buchanan does with his quarterbacks and that sort of thing. And Brayley Boone's got a good arm and a good command of the offense, so they've really got two pretty serviceable quarterbacks there. So I think Mason makes it closer, certainly, and they place such a high emphasis on games in Flatwoods. They'll be beyond fired up for this game. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I mean, I think the interest kind of ratchets up a level there in the second round. You have possibilities of Ashland at Highlands again, of Covcath at Johnson Central, Lawrence County at Belfry, which was actually a pretty close game for the better part of 3 quarters this season. Lawrence County lost 34-19. Some costly turnovers were key in that one as Belfry survived. Paintsville and Pikeville, 62-8 Pikeville earlier in the season. Do you think Paintsville can maybe at least play a little closer with them? I think Paintsville's gotten better. You just saw them against West.
Yeah, they were able to capitalize on a few common turnovers throughout that game too, in the rain and the cold weather and the mud over at Olive Hill.
That was a nice win for them. They've also beaten LCA and beaten Fairview.
Yeah, it's a good win in terms of momentum heading into the playoffs too. I know they've got a tough task possibly with Pikeville down the road. Cash Daniel, obviously, I called him the Ben Roethlisberger of this area, but Roethlisberger's played well in the past 2 weeks, throwing 12 touchdown passes too. So anything is possible, especially when it comes to the playoffs. Pikeville is, I think, on a completely different level than any other team in this area right now, including Raceland. And I think when you're talking about that game possibly being closer than what most people think, you might be right. But I think Pikeville right now is the better team heading into November. I know that's difficult for me to say, difficult for some Ram fans to hear right now, but Pikeville has a really good team.
And I know we were talking a little bit before the show about Martins Ferry, which is Fairview coach Fred Ray's alma mater. They're going to play against Ironton in Ironton on Saturday. So that could be an interesting game. Martins Ferry's 9-1, Ironton's 7-2. A little different. In the playoffs in Ohio. You know, the first round games aren't always blowouts.
Yeah.
So you got Martins Ferry though coming in. If Ironton gets past them, who could they play in the second round, Zach?
Wheelersburg. That's assuming Wheelersburg can get past Liberty Union, which is a pretty highly regarded program out of that area too. But you know, to have a matchup of that magnitude as far as a rivalry is concerned in the second round of the playoffs. I mean, we may have Ironton, Wheelersburg, and Raceland Fairview on the same weekend. That'd be pretty solid as far as in terms of just getting people super excited and fired up.
As we enter the fourth quarter portion of our show, let's move on to what local team is going farthest into each class that we cover, which is A, 3A, and 4A. And also, if you want to give me who your state champion is going to be, who you think the state champion in each of those three classes will be. Zach, if you want to start, if you look at Class A, who's going the farthest in our area and who's going to win state?
I think Raceland is probably kind of a no-brainer in this regard, and we keep talking about Raceland Pikeville, and that's going to be a very tough task for Raceland to get past if they can, but they have a good chance to get there, and you know, not counting chickens before they're hatched, but if they do lose to Pikeville, Pikeville may make it to the state championship game. There's no shame in that, really. And to pick a state winner, it's just so hard to pick against Mayfield at this stage because they're not only, first of all, they won't be in Class A anymore. They're one of the bigger Class A programs in the state right now in terms of enrollment, and they're just on another level beyond really anything that anybody in Class A can throw at them on this side of the state right now.
I think we'll just stay with Class A and go down the line here. I agree with you on Mayfield. I don't think anybody's going to touch them. I think Pikeville, Williamsburg, Raceland are probably the three next best teams in Class A. Class A, as I was talking before the show, is probably better than 2A. Maybe as good as 3A this year. Class A's got some strong teams. And at Pikeville, you know, I know Raceland's probably going to win the game because they just live and thrive off of proving all of us wrong. And it sounds like we're all going to pick Pikeville. But I think Raceland, out of our Class A teams, will go the farthest. They'll make it to that region final and play on the turf at Pikeville, and I like Mayfield as the state champion.
A couple of years ago when Hazard played Mayfield in the state championship, the biggest thing that caused Hazard to win that game was play on the offensive line. They had such big offensive linemen that pushed around Mayfield throughout that entire game too. I think Pikeville has a similar offensive line too, and that's another one of those things where you hear that cliche, the game is won in the trenches, and that could possibly be another thing that heads towards Pikeville's advantage, possibly going into the state championship if they get that far. If Raceland can get that far too, it might be a shootout type video game type numbers between Raceland and Mayfield in terms of scoring offense. So it all depends on which team can get out of there. If Raceland goes, it's got to be offensive. If it's Pikeville, you're got to look at the play on the offensive line and the weapons that they have too.
I know defense, you know, prevails, and Raceland's defense, as we talked about, Raceland's defense has gotten so much better. They're very strong, but you know, Pikeville's defense is not shabby at all. Matt, what do you think, Class A?
Well, I think every team in Class A is going to be ecstatic whenever Mayfield leaves Class A after this year and moves up to 2A. Mayfield is just too tough. I think Pikeville will be in the state championship, but Mayfield's got too much.
In Class 3A, Russell could be at home in the region final if they get that far. The state semis, if they would happen to advance past that, would be on the road, possibly at a Belfry. Do you think out of Class 3A that Russell probably has the best chance of getting the farthest out of the teams that we cover in the area?
Well, I'll tell you, look at Lawrence County, and they're on the other side of that bracket in this half of the state. I think they both have a good chance to get to the region final. Lawrence is going to run into Belfry if they do that. That's not a good matchup for them, although they played well against Belfry in the regular season, but Belfry's just on another level than most 3A teams around here. Russell has a good chance to get through there. I think they have maybe a slightly tougher road in the first 2 weeks than Lawrence does, but they both have a good shot to be in the state quarterfinals, I think.
Who's the state champion in 3A?
South Warren, I know, is very highly regarded out of that western side of the state, and that's the same county that Bowling Green is in. And there's so many good programs in Warren County there. You look at Bowling Green, that's won several Class 5A titles in a row, and South Warren's very highly regarded, and I think they're probably the favorite at this point.
South Warren's basically been ranked 1 for much of the season, especially after Belfry lost to Pikeville.
Yes.
I think since then South Warren has collected most of the first place votes in the AP poll. So I think I would go South Warren as well, just based on that and what they've done this season. And you know, you look at Russell, they could play a Garrett County there in the region final at home. They're in Flatwoods. You know, that game could almost be a toss-up, couldn't it?
I think so too. But Russell's got a lot of weapons on offense too. I think offense wins games, but defense wins championships. Another cliche that we throw out here quite often. But I think with Russell performing at a high level, basically from the Ashland game on the offensive side of the ball, and I don't think that changes much throughout the rest of the playoffs.
It starts with the offensive line there. Logan Suman and Landon Arnold, those guys. I think the Red Devils have a good chance of being in the state semifinals. The road will probably end there if they get that far, but my goodness, if they get that far, that's a great accomplishment for Russell under first-year coach T.J. Maynard.
I would have to agree. Russell's been chewing up rushing yards all season long. Nick Conley has a bit of an injury there at the end of the season. If he's 100%, I think we'll see Russell win the state semis probably against Belfry, and those two teams have had some classic matchups in the state semifinals. So that will be great to see.
As far as the champion goes, too, I can't go against the grain. South Warren obviously looks to be one of the favorites this year, but if you talk about defense winning championships, you remember the score of the Wayne County game last year, the state title game between Belfry?
3-0.
3-0.
Yeah, 3-0.
That's all that matters is winning a defensive battle like that. I think Belfry wins it again.
Wow. Philip Haywood, can't go wrong with him. So, all right, well, let's go to Class 4A, where Johnson Central could host the region final if they get past Covington Catholic. Do you think Johnson Central has the best chance of our local teams of getting the farthest in Class 4A?
Of our 4A teams, yes, I agree with that. And Highlands is, they're very, very solid season. I think they're 8-2, if I'm not mistaken. Their 2 losses are to out-of-state teams, very good out-of-state teams. They lost to an 8A team out of Florida, and they played competitively with them. So that just gives you an idea of, how high quality the football is in Florida, and then to have a team that's able to compete with that. So I think Highlands, again, is just on another level than anybody else in this half of the state right now in 4A.
I do too. The Elder game, Highlands and Elder, that was a very closely competed game too, wasn't it?
I think that ended up being a 2-score game, but against Elder.
49-35.
Yeah, and you look at Covcath and they played Moeller. These GCL teams out of Cincinnati are great tests for these Northern Kentucky teams.
Yeah.
That is beyond the opposition that any of our teams see on a regular basis.
Yeah, and that's what would concern you if you're a Johnson Central fan, because they haven't really received much of a challenge this year. I would say Ashland and Belfry are the top 2 challenges that they've faced, and goodness, they passed those tests with flying colors. But we'll see what they do against the heavy hitters.
I think this is the year. We say that all the time. We say it all the time.
This is the year.
But this has got to be the year for Johnson Central. They want to send Highlands out of Class 4A on a down note, and they want to. They want to do it. Want to get to the state championship. If they can get past either Covcath or Highlands, I think they make it all the way to Bowling Green and then end up taking home the trophy for the first time in school history.
And if that's the case, if they do advance that far, all the games would be in Paintsville until they get to Bowling Green. So
home field advantage does a lot for teams at this time of year.
This time of year, because you have all the travel, you have the travel aspect, because you got teams from Northern Kentucky coming to this side of the state and so on and so forth. Matt, what do you think for it?
Well, I'm in complete agreement again here. I think Central will be on the carpet. I think that loss to Covcath last year.
No, we're not in complete agreement.
No.
We're not in complete agreement.
In complete agreement? No.
No, Highlands is going to take down Central. I'm telling you right now.
Well, I'm in complete agreement with McKenzie here. That's what I meant. That's what I meant.
But the lines have been drawn.
Yeah, right here.
But I think that loss to Covcath last year really kind of sticks with Central. I think this year they're going to take care of business. I think maybe last year they were looking forward to the Highlands game. And I think now this year, I think they know what's at stake, and I think they will get the carpet.
Interesting.
In Bowling Green.
Interesting. Well, Ashland they host Covington Holmes here on Friday, and I think they'll get past them, and then they'll run into Highlands. And Boyd County goes to Highlands this Friday. Greenup County goes to Covington Catholic on Saturday afternoon. All right, special edition 2 for the road. Let's close this thing out. I'm going to put each of you on the spot. College football, right now, if you had to predict your champion and your runner-up, who's the championship game going to be between, and who's going to emerge on top? Start with you, Matt.
I think we might see a rematch.
Okay.
With last year's championship game. I think maybe this time Auburn will take it. I watched Auburn against Ole Miss last Saturday. That's pretty potent offense, and to go into Oxford and beat Ole Miss when Alabama couldn't do it, I think we'll see Auburn holding the trophy.
Okay, but I thought you've been talking about TCU
Hey.
all season or the last couple of weeks anyway. I thought you might throw a TCU.
Well, I love
disappointed.
TCU, but they're not in
They
the
have a
SEC. They're not in the SEC.
I know, but if they can knock out Kansas State this weekend, that would do a lot for the resume.
Yeah, but I'd like to see that offense go against the
A lot of
SEC
purple
West
in that
defense. I'd love to see that offense go against the defense.
Okay, so you're
I
going
mean,
Auburn.
Yeah,
Good
you know, it's something like they play basketball in the Big 12 football. It seems like these teams are always in the 60s, but SEC defense is a little bit different. So I think it's going to be Auburn over Florida State.
Okay.
At some point, Florida State has to lose the ball game. Yeah, they have been in so many games where they have been down by 2 or 3 scores.
Do they
and
have to?
Always find a way to come back and win. Everyone talks about how they might be a little bit overrated. Jameis Winston, obviously, we know what goes on with him on and off the field. At some point, they have to lose. I don't think they make it into the playoff at all. I think they're gonna lose a game at some point, whether it be to Duke or to even Florida after what they did to Georgia last week. You never know what's going to happen when those two teams meet up. At the same time, I'm going to go with Mississippi State. I think they have just been looking like a team of destiny. I was at the Kentucky game a couple of weeks ago where Dak Prescott proved why he's one of the best football players in the country. I think Mississippi State gets into the playoff, gets to the championship, and wins it. But they will play Oregon. I've got Oregon getting into the playoff, getting into the championship game, and that will be a lot of fun in terms of offense because Marcus Mariota is one of the best players in college football as well.
Well, we agree there. I got Oregon in the championship game as well. They're going to fall to Alabama, roll tide.
I won't say roll tide, but I like Alabama too. And I think there's a good chance that we have an Iron Bowl rematch in there. Auburn's played well.
Wow.
We talk about
That'd be something.
SEC defenses, and that's my problem with Mississippi State is they can't tackle anybody. We saw that in the Kentucky game. So I think Alabama's a little bit better defensively than what Auburn is, and so that's what I'm thinking.
Can't believe I just said roll tide. I got caught up in the moment.
Shame on you.
I apologize for that. All my Kentucky people, and my friends at Kentucky.
Are they going to win a 6th game?
Who? Yes, Kentucky will win a 6th game. I'm calling it right now. They're going to beat Georgia and Tennessee. They're going to be 7-5. They'll lose to Louisville. Also, can't believe I just said that. Kentucky, though, is going to go 7-5, and I don't know who they're going to meet in the bowl game, but the prospects are interesting, to say the least. Do you think they'll win the 6th?
It's been very difficult. I was on the show a couple of weeks ago, and I said they were going to beat Mississippi State, and that did not happen.
You can't go from that to 5 wins.
It's going to be a little difficult, I think, from here on out, too, especially when you're getting a mad Georgia team coming into Commonwealth Stadium this weekend after giving up 424 yards on the ground to Florida.
That's true.
That's going to be a little difficult. I don't know. If there's going to be a 6th win, it's got to be at Tennessee.
Well, again, thanks for joining us. This is Zach Clemmy, Matt Sparks, Mackenzie Bates. Thank you guys for coming down and being part of the Prelude to the Playoff show for HTPT. I want to, again, thank Jason Clark and Morgan Large for being our guests. Again, HTPT is brought to you by Fannin Automotive Family. We'll see you next week.